it's almost something I almost like can't really talk about it. But there are some things that still stand out to me as unusual, despite that. Our personalities are a little bit different, but more than that, there's just some really unique things about my dad, and some of them might be familiar to all of you guys. But so I was trying to think of how to succinctly kind of explain this, and some things that stood out to me as notable about my dad's general approach to life stood out, and the first thing that came to my mind was really an afternoon that we spent together. I think I was probably 10, and we were doing errands or something. Somehow the schedule turned out so that we actually went and just kind of had lunch and just hung out at a restaurant, the Parkway Restaurant in Evanston, kind of a greasy spoon place. It was kind of, you go in and it's sort of a diner, and there's vinyl booths, and kind of one of these Chicago style places, pies, little plastic case, on the counter. And but for me as a kid, this was like the first time I had just hung out with my dad. It wasn't, I obviously spent lots of time together as I was growing up, but this was somehow different. This was like we were just hanging out and talking. And it felt really special, and I kind of was enjoying it, and kind of just noting like, this is like kind of a new way of relating or hanging out. And so we were just talking about stuff. Somehow the conversation got to, there was a glass of water on the table, kind of one of these, dark glasses that they have in diners, with some ice water on it. And somehow the conversation got bigger than that, really big, to the topic of, is all water on Earth conserved? Is it just recycled throughout time? And in other words, has any water been created since the beginning of recorded history, or do we have basically the same water? And so I think no one in this room will be surprised that the conversation would have all of a sudden gotten like from small to big. But this was a kind of a cool idea, and so I was just kind of talking about it, and I was sitting there, and I said, "Wow, all recorded history, or even earlier." And so I said, so this glass of water on the table, this same glass of water could have been like drunk by a famous person in history.
Could have been peed by a dinosaur.
Yeah. Well, my dad, so he kind of paused and he said, that glass of water could be a famous person. And that was, I think, in a nutshell, was the experience of hanging out with my dad and just talking, and also being exposed to really a different way of looking at things, which is probably not too surprising to folks here. And it actually reminds me of in the same office that Ron was referencing earlier. This is much later. My dad had two newspaper headlines that he had cut out of a newspaper with a pair of scissors. They had been remarkable to him for some reason. There were two headlines that he had tacked on the wall. One of them said, "Love denied led to massacre." It's kind of like, you look at it and it's like, oh. It's a little bit dark. but dummy's still talking. And I don't know why, but the combination of those two for me are so expressive of my dad's family. And I almost can't explain. There's no even way to go into it. You don't quickly get lost, when you're trying to explain that. But it does remind me of a story, a thing that my dad had mentioned to me that from when he was in high school. He actually had someone make business cards in some class, like a shop class or something like that. And the business cards, he asked and commissioned this. And I said, make me some cards. And they said, Daniel Chapin, worldly pessimist, universal optimist. And that connects straight to the ventriloquist and dead and the I think so. In my attempt to kind of express that very unusual way of looking at things, those really stood out to me. And the only other thing I'd like to say is just that since that time in the Greasy Spoon when we first got to hang out, it's always been fun to know, and I always feel a little bit excited every chance we get since then, just to wow, I'm hanging out with my dad. This is cool.
Beautiful.